What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my room. I do have a dream of one day being able to sit at my desk and film, but my desk is in such a disarray right now that it's just not gonna happen, so here we are. Hello, welcome back. You gonna say hello to everybody? So today's video is going to be an interesting one. It is going to be my opinions on the new Jaclyn Hill and Morphe palette volume 2. So if you have been watching any kind of beauty community drama at all, you know exactly what the deal has been. So just a little recap, excuse me, stop it. Just a little recap for those of you who are not aware. Jaclyn Hill came out with this palette. It's white. Jaclyn came out with this palette, I believe in 2017. I'll put information here if I'm wrong. And it is in collaboration with Morphe, and it is a 38 pan eyeshadow palette. This is what it looks like. Everybody loved this. It got pretty rave reviews across the community, and you know, people really liked it. It blended well, the shadows performed well, shimmers were nice, mattes were nice. People didn't really have a problem. So then she came out with her Vault collection with Morphe, which was, I don't have them anymore, but they were like smaller pan sizes of these smaller pan sizes. Then she came out with the Vault collection, which apparently were the shades that didn't make it into the original palette. And they were, I believe, 12 or 14 shades, and they got pretty bad reviews across the internet. They weren't blending well, they were patchy. There's plenty of YouTube videos around that kind of show how horrible they went. So I bought them and promptly returned them, and then I gave one of them away to my sister. I'm not sure if she's using it, probably not. So that brings us to volume 2. So, like I said, this one was very widely respected in the community, got praise all around, people really liked it. So Jaclyn's like, I made a crap ton of money off of this, let's do it again. Rightly so. So she came out with this video saying, you know, I'm going to make another palette with Morphe, and it's going to be the same exact formula that you know and love. Same exact formula. So everyone, including myself, is like, well, I love this, so of course I'm going to buy the second one. Regardless of my opinions on her business practices, I personally was a victim of her lipstick scandal. So I was thinking, I love this palette. It's very clear, very obvious. I talked about it a bunch on my channel. I use this thing to death. It desperately needs to be cleaned, but I've used every single shade in this palette, and I think they all perform really well. So I was like, sign me up. Where can I purchase this other palette? So her video kind of goes into depth about how, you know, this is her own formula and nobody else at Morphe is allowed to use it. None of the other collaborators of Morphe are allowed to use this formula. It's just hers. She signed papers. So that kind of solidified the view in my mind that what I'm going to get is going to be the same as what I already have. So the palette released, and one of the YouTubers on this platform, her name is Jen Loves Reviews. I'm generally not a fan of her I like her reviews. I'm generally not a fan of her tutorials. However, I do think her reviews are very well thought out and done very well. So she came out with this video that said the new palette's ingredients are different than the first palette's ingredients. Pretty vastly different. So not only, so this original palette is vegan. There are no animal products in there. So her new palette is not vegan. So I'm personally not vegan, so that doesn't necessarily affect me, but I'm sure it affects a large portion of the community. And I think people were upset because Jaclyn proclaimed in her video that her new palette is the same formula as this. So clearly it's not. The ingredients are different. People are saying the performance is different, and it's not vegan anymore. So Morphe never came out and made any sort of announcement about this formula change, and neither did Jaclyn. So a couple of days went by, and then Jaclyn, yesterday in my time, went on Twitter and was like, sorry, they told me they were going to change it, but I didn't ask how they were going to change it. So if you are vegan, I'm really sorry. So that just kind of like angered people even more. And, you know, she never really owned up and said, yeah, they changed it. You know, I knew they were going to do X, Y, and Z, so hey, look out for that. It's going to be different. So I am one of the lucky ones that has the original Jaclyn palette. The palette this original palette you can buy still in Morphe stores and in Ulta stores, but the ingredients are different. They match the second palette. So that brings us to the second palette. I bought it. So I ordered this off of Ulta because I don't want to pay Morphe's exorbitant shipping prices. So I did purchase this off of Ulta. However, I need to get the box. Let me get the box. Okay. So this volume 2 is the same price as volume 1. I believe it's $39, which is the most expensive Morphe eyeshadow palette you can currently purchase. And just a personal note, now that I know, in Jen Loves Reviews video, she did mention that the formula of the new palette that matches the formula of the re-released first palette is very similar to the Jeffree Star and Morphe collab. So, and his palettes are priced significantly lower, I believe. So it's just frustrating that they kind of cheapened the formula but didn't lower the price on the Jaclyn Hill palettes. But, I'm a sucker. I still bought it. But anyway, so this is the outer packaging. And this is the kind of format that you're going to see in the newly released original palettes. They kind of just changed the formatting on the packaging. On the back, she's got her picture and a little blurb from her here. So this is called an artistry palette. That's something to note. This volume 2 palette is a mixture of eyeshadows and pressed pigments, which I will get into later when I talk about how the shades performed on my eyes. So it just basically says the past 3 years have been absolutely insane. Highs, lows, drama. I don't know if I would address drama on the back of my collab box, but maybe when I have a collab, I will make that decision for myself. So, she looks great in the picture. I think Lipstick Nick did her makeup for this. So anyway, let's get into the palette. I've been playing with this for a while now. And on the back, there's really no information, just kind of blank on the back. On the back of the original palette, it says Morphe x Jaclyn Hill, and it has her initials kind of scattered all over the place, which I never was a fan of, but whatever. So the first gripe I have about this palette is that it's white, and it's gonna look like this pretty soon because this one is white. So especially with the way that these colors are, and their pigment and their actual coloring, this is gonna get filthy very quickly. One thing I do appreciate is that this lettering on here is actually, it seems to be actually like stamped and to be like a part of the palette, as opposed to this one, which I believe is just screen printed on. So there's already like parts of it coming off. So it's gonna just make it more difficult to clean. All right, let's get into the palette. There is a message up on the top. It says, to all my loving subscribers who have supported me all these years, this one's for you, volume 2. And then there is a note up here as well. This palette is dedicated to all my loving subscribers. So this is what the inside of the palette looks like. When I first saw it, I had several thoughts. I was like, what am I gonna do with this? Where am I gonna wear it? And oh my God, I need it. So I have had a chance to play with every single one of these shades. So I'm going to kind of take you through the ones that are notable to me, and then you can kind of get some information to see if this is a good buy for you and something that you think you'll get some use out of. The first thing that I loved about this palette is that there's a matte white shade. There is not a matte white shade in the original palette, although it may look like it. These first two shades up here, and also I would like to point out that I have the original palette that doesn't have any of the shade names printed on there or the back, which bugs me. So these two shades here, both are shimmery. One has more of a golden undertone, one has more of a pink undertone. So there is not a matte white shade. I use a matte white shade every single day to set my eye primer to help my eyeshadows glide on a little bit better. So this already makes the palette feel a little bit more cohesive to me. Moving on to this next shade, which is called I'm In It. This one is one of the more unique shades of the palette. It kind of looks white in the pan, but when you actually swatch it, it's kind of a bluish purple duochrome. It translates very well onto the eye. It translates a little bit more purple than anything on the eye, but I think it is really unique, and I'm happy that's in there. Over here, you have kind of your area of basic neutral warm shades. So Love Handles, Comfort Zone, and Perfectionist, and Thick Skin over here on the corner, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, are nearly identical. Love Handles might be a shade, maybe a half a shade lighter, but I feel that all of these are pretty interchangeable. They blend very nicely on the eye. They're not patchy. Their performance is really pretty good, and I don't have really any complaints about them except for their similarity. This shade, these 4 shades right here, we have Ride or Diamonds, Get Ready With Me, Bougie, and Drama Queen. These are all what she referred to as pressed glitter formulas, and they are beautiful. They are really, really nice. They're nicely pigmented. They have a lot of glitter in them, so I suggest using a glitter glue when you do apply them, but they perform really well, and they do look really nice on the eye. Over here, you have a bright matte yellow. It's called No Joke. So I have that kind of as my transition shade up in the crease right now, and I had a lot of trouble with this shade. I found it to be very patchy. I started just kind of putting it all over my crease on each eye, and I felt that one eye looked totally different than the other eye. The shade to me is inconsistent and quite patchy. So then after I put down all of these shades, which I will go through, I had to go back in with the yellow shade to kind of blend everything together, and I found that I wasn't getting a lot of color payoff, and it was still looking pretty patchy. So this is one of those shades, and there are several in here that I'll mention. This is one of the shades where tapping your brush on your eye will give you a better payoff than just kind of blending with a blending brush. So, about that shade. Feeling Myself is a really nice matte orange. I like that shade. There are several matte orangey types of shades in the original palette, but nothing as vibrant as this one. These are more a little bit like more warm and more, I don't want to say muted, but like more neutrally warm. And this one is a pretty fiery orange. So I do really like that a lot. We already addressed those shades. Flawed and Odd, Paolo, Empowered, and A Moment are just your typical like shimmer shades. They're nothing spectacular, and they are pretty dupeable, especially Flawed and Odd. It's just kind of like a bronzy gold. There are shades similar to that in the first palette. They're nice to have, but they're not necessarily like mind-blowing shades. Moving on to Positivity. I've used that. It's more of like a peachy pink. I do like that. I haven't had any trouble with it. Feeling Myself and My Man, these two kind of orangey shades here, again, are indiscernible on the eye. As you blend them, they tend to look exactly the same, which is not okay, especially for a palette that's this expensive. So yeah, Feeling Myself and My Man are definitely one of the pairs of shades that look very similar when you apply them on the eye. I want to loop in Grateful, the one right next to it down here. Grateful is interchangeable with Love Handles, Comfort Zone, and Homebody. They're all about the same shade, and I'm not necessarily in love with that. The performance is good, the payoff is good, but I have that shade pretty much 4 times over already in the palette. Heart On and Living My Best are nice shades. They blend fine. They're very pigmented. Living My Best is one of those mattes with glitter in them, and I never really understood that concept in an eyeshadow. I just feel like if it's glittery, I'm going to put it in my lid, but if it's matte, I'm going to put it in my crease. So I don't find that a lot of the glitter translates onto the eye when you use them as crease shades. So just to keep that in mind. And it is nice to have a red shade in a palette. I think it's very... it's not rare, but it's not really necessarily common to have an actual like pure red shade in a palette. This again, I believe, is one of the pressed pigments. So with all the pressed pigments in the palette, it's easier to pat than it is to blend. They can get really patchy really quickly. A Moment and Therapy Sesh are really nice, no problems. Therapy Sesh I have on my lid and then right underneath my lower lash line. I had no problems with that. I really liked it. Lolly Mama and Tipsy Girl are two more shades that are completely indiscernible on the eye. I have them both in my crease right now. I have Tipsy Girl closer to my brow bone, and then lower in my crease I have Lolly Mama. And they blended together and they look exactly the same shade. So that's another gripe, kind of frustrating. I will kind of get closer at the end of the video so you can see what my eye look looks like up close. Empowered is a really nice shade. It seems to be one of the pressed glitters, so I do really like those. Moving on to Dance Party over here. This one is another matte shade with glitter in it. No problems with that one at all. Next, and Crazy down here, completely indiscernible on the eye. Oh Hello is pretty close to them too. And then getting into the last row, we've got Stay True, which is a matte with a glitter that's basically the same as Oh Hello over here. We have Not My Journey in Good Place. Not My Journey is a matte with glitter in it. Good Place is one of your like normal kind of shimmers. There are deeper purples that are in this palette. Let me see if I can do that. Yep. They're all interchangeable in my opinion. They don't really offer too much of a variety. And then we have Temptress. Temptress is a matte black with glitter in it. So I have used this shade several times. It's nice. I don't know why there's glitter in it. I heard somewhere that it has something to do with like the blendability. Like I guess you can modify the formula of an eyeshadow if it's matte and has glitter in it so it's able to be blended better. There is a matte black in her original palette. It's very good. So that's nice to have. So you do have more of a cohesive palette in the respect of you have a matte white and a matte black. These shades are not your everyday wearable shades, which I think she did on purpose because her original palette is very neutral and very wearable. There are a lot of shades in this palette, like I had mentioned, that are indiscernible on the eye. A lot of these shades look similar. So I think that's something to take into consideration if you're looking to purchase this palette, that there's not going to be a lot of variations between the purples, the pinks, and the oranges. Even those neutral browns don't look very different from each other. I have created beautiful looks on this palette. I'm overall happy I purchased it. More of as a collector's item than anything. I am going to continue to use it. I think the most unique shades in the palette are I'm In It, this kind of white purpley shift. This Tipsy Girl shade is nice. It's pretty unique for being like a hot pink. And I guess it's this unique shade. Another unique shade would be No Joke, this matte yellow. I did not like the performance of that matte yellow. I find that these shades have a lot of kick up when I'm playing with them, so that's a personal preference as well if you don't mind a lot of kick up in your eyeshadows. The pressed glitters are very, very pretty. So I will swatch a couple for you. They almost have like a wet feeling to them. So here we have Rider Diamonds and Bougie. So they are pretty. They have a lot of reflect to them. They do have quite a bit of glitter in them. So like I said, make sure to use a glitter glue when you are using them. What else can I really say about it? It's a pretty palette. The shades that I had the hardest time with are definitely No Joke. I had pretty not very decent, pretty bad payoff with Flawed and Odd over here. And then the purples blended well, but they are indiscernible from each other. So I will swatch this No Joke shade for you. And let's pick another one. And we'll swatch A Moment as well. So here's Flawed and Odd up here, and then A Moment down here. They're pretty, but on the eye, you can even see towards the end of my swatch, it's getting kind of faded. They're not necessarily the most pigmented, and shades like this, these super, super warm golds, are pretty common in palettes, so you're really not missing out on anything if you don't get a lot of use out of that shade. Talking about the shade names really quickly, I didn't watch her launch video, so I don't know if she went through and talked about the shades and why she named them that. If I had to guess, I would assume that she did not do that, because her video would have been quite a bit longer. Just the shades that I want to kind of address really quickly are Bougie, which is one of the shimmers that I have swatched on my hand now. I think that was in poor taste. That's reminds me of her really terribly executed lipstick launch. So at the end of her customer service emails, they would sign it with "Stay Bougie," and even, you know, when people were complaining about how horrible their lipsticks were and that they were moldy and hairy and contaminated, just the whole "Stay Bougie" thing really rubbed people the wrong way. So if I was her, I would not have done that. The next shade I want to talk about is "Feeling Myself," one of these matte oranges over here. She talks a lot about how she's self-conscious about how she looks, about how much she weighs, how her face looks. So I don't know if I would have put that in there either, because when I think of "Feeling Myself," I don't think of Jaclyn Hill necessarily, because she kind of talks a lot about how not great she feels, both mentally and emotionally. So that was kind of interesting. We've got the shade "Lolly Mama," which is one of the hot pinks. I have no idea where that came from. So like I said, I don't know if she talked about this in her palette reveal video. The next shade I wanted to kind of talk about was "Positiva," which is down here, one of the other hot pinks. It's spelled Positiva-T, T-E-A. A lot of people were saying that that was kind of a rip-off of Shane Dawson's palettes, or Shane Dawson's Jeffree Star series. He did talk about that. I think it's part of his merch line. I don't know anything about that really. Flawed and Odd, Talia. And then two more shades I just want to address really quickly. One is "Perfectionist," one of these interchangeable neutral browns up here. Her whole shtick is that she's a perfectionist, but with how poorly all of her other launches have gone, I mean, if you think of like the span of all of this girl's launches, starting with like the Gerard Cosmetics lip gloss to this palette here, there have been maybe 2 launches that have gone well. Her Champagne Pop highlighter was widely renowned as one of the top highlighters of the beauty community. But there was drama with that, for that being limited edition and then coming back later. There was drama with her Vault collection. There was drama with her lipsticks. There was drama with her, the batch codes on her Jaclyn Cosmetics highlighters. Overall, I think that launch went pretty well though. There was drama with this release. There's drama. I mean, what else am I missing? I know did I say the Vault palettes? I did. What other products does she have drama with? Everything else except for pretty much like her highlighters and her volume 1 palette has gone pretty poorly. So for her to say that she's a perfectionist, I think it's pretty clear that she is not, because she wouldn't have such a horrible track record of launches, and she wouldn't have such a poor reputation in the community too. I mean, if she was a perfectionist, she would have had videos about this palette already up and like tutorials, and as I'm filming this on March 4th, she has not put up a tutorial yet, and this palette's been out for a little while. So I don't think she's a perfectionist at all, and that was interesting that she put that in there. And then the last thing I want to address is the shade over here, this hot pink called "Tipsy Girl." Jaclyn recently came out and revealed that she's been struggling with alcohol abuse. So to put a shade in there called "Tipsy Girl" is kind of in poor taste, in my opinion. She put out this big dramatic "get ready with me" video about how these are things that she's been struggling with. So you think that she wouldn't want to kind of put something like a lighthearted "Tipsy Girl" into one of her releases. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. At the end of the day, I'm not looking at the shade names when I'm using the palette. I do want to point out that I've already got the palette dirty, just from those swatches that are on my hand. So this is gonna be a nightmare to keep clean. And then on the side it just says Jaclyn Hill Palette Volume 2. It doesn't say anything on the side of the original palette. So those are my overall thoughts of the Jaclyn Hill palette. Am I happy I have it? Yes. I'm happy to have them both. I will get some use out of this, but not nearly enough as much as I will get out of the first one, because this one's a little bit more neutral, more everyday, more wearable. This one's a little bit more out there. I think they complement each other pretty well. There are shades in here that don't perform as well as I would expect them to, and I wish that they had kept the original formula. So I'm gonna kind of come in closer to show you guys what my eye look looks like. All right, so in my crease, like I mentioned earlier, I have the No Joke shade, which is the matte yellow. Down in my crease, I started with My Man, kind of in my crease right there. I went a little bit lower with Positivity, which you can't see because they kind of mesh together. Do I have something on my face? Oh my God. All right. At least I addressed it. Moving on. And then all over my lid and on my lower lash line, I have G Money. That's what it is, not Therapy Sash. I thought it was Therapy Sash. It is G Money as my lid shade and on my lower lash line. So that's all I have on my eyes right now. My black liner is from Huda. Oh, and then I did put some of the black shade Temptress on my upper lash line just for some liner. Everything blended out pretty nicely. Like I said, I had trouble with that yellow kind of showing up, and then the two pink shades are totally indiscernible from each other. So those are my thoughts on the palette. Let me know if you are planning on buying this palette. I used, on Ulta.com, I used Ebates, I used a discount code, and I used some points. So I didn't spend the retail price on the palette, which I think it's overpriced for what it is. I especially think it's overpriced because they've now revealed they've changed the formula. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!